Welcome to the Design Thinker podcast. You're listening to season 1, episode 2, hosted by me, Dani Chesson.
And me, Peter Allan.
So, what are we talking about this week, Pete?
This week, Dani, we are talking about human-centered design. Me, you, we, us. Is it only for humans?
Oh, I know right now there's a big debate around the ethical aspect of human-centered design and how, if we continue to only focus on the humans, are we creating other problems down the road? So looking forward to diving into this topic with you. I wonder though, before we get started, if a good place to start might be kind of explaining to our viewers who may not know what is human-centered design.
Yeah, great. It would be a good starting point, wouldn't it? So human-centered design, this is like last week's episode, maybe we've got two slightly different definitions. So human-centered design, well, for me, it's another way of labeling something called design thinking, which is a process of collaborating, I guess, in a group of people from different backgrounds to discover and then solve using an iterative design process some human-centered problems. I guess the clue's in the name. So I heard somewhere once that the magic superpower of designers or design thinking, human-centered design, is that ability to really uncover what people need and want in their lives that's missing. And human-centered design is a structured process for bringing people together and discovering what those problems are, and then creating solutions for them. What about you, Dani? What's your definition?
So all of that, and I also the thing that I would add to that is, for me, it's about, there's a big component about empathy, and really understanding the pain points from a human perspective of a problem, right? Oftentimes we think about a problem from a very cost or systems perspective, but what are the actual, how are humans experiencing this problem? And in understanding that, and really understanding that, we get inspired to solve problems. So I think it's everything you said in terms of bringing together a diverse group of people, working iteratively through a problem. So the thing I would add to that is actually understanding from a human perspective what the problem is.
Okay, I'm going to do something I did last week, which is go off on a little bit of a tangent and into a little bit of detail, and that's around this word problem. I guess the way I think of a problem, and I have conversations with people about human-centered design and then problems, and one of the thoughts that I have around a problem is, and I suppose it's a bit of a thought experiment. Imagine if somehow a magic wand was waved, and for the next 10 minutes, for some reason, somehow human beings were either kind of frozen in exactly what they were doing, or were kind of temporarily removed from the planet. Well, perhaps there would be no such thing as a problem, not because things weren't going well or not well, but because there was no humans around to perceive those problems. Do you think that's a helpful thing to think about, or thought experiment to do, when we're going, well, all problems are maybe just things perceived by people, so that's what human-centered design is about?
I think I'm still in my thought experiment.
Okay.
I do think that's helpful. I think where my head was going when we were talking about that is, it's kind of that concept of, if a tree falls in the woods and no one's there, does it make a noise? Has it actually fallen?
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, most of the things that we classify as a problem is because it's something that's experienced by a human that isn't desirable.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. And there we go in the background. An undesirable situation is being remedied by that emergency services vehicle. Case in point.
Case in point.
Okay, so perhaps problems are a bit of a human thing, but I'll bring us back out of that philosophical conversation and more into this debate about human-centeredness and do we need to expand our kind of perspective and start to consider problems that aren't only affecting humans? What sort of what arguments have you heard in those debates, Dani?
Well, I think where some of those arguments are coming from is, I think as humans, we have to take some responsibility, and I say some because there's a debate on how much and where. We have to take responsibility for some of the things that we have created that have created other problems. For example, plastic. Right? Plastic helped solve the invention of plastic, changed human life in so many different ways. But it also had some consequences that we're having to deal with now. So I think what's spiraling this debate around human-centeredness, is it really a good thing? Is it only for humans? Is coming from, if we continue to design things that end up destroying the environment, or if we're focused on a certain group of humans and we create things that are desirable for them, then do we disadvantage a different set of humans or another set of humans? So I think the thing that this surfaces up is the idea of systems thinking, or thinking about design in the concept of if you throw a stone into a pond and it creates that ripple effect. I think design has that same power. So I think the focus of the debate is, do we need to broaden what we mean when we say human-centered design?
Okay. There's lots of thoughts bubbling up in my head. Maybe I'll start with, I think we do. I think we do need to expand what we mean when we say human-centered design, and maybe part of the debate is whether we need to change the label and the name to evolve. I heard this phrase earlier, which really resonated with me, which is, we know better now, so we can choose to do better now. And I guess that's true of, hopefully all human knowledge is evolving, so we always know better today than we did yesterday. So we can always try and do better today. So I think of, when I think of human-centered design and think of a human-centered solution, then my personal perspective is, if we're designing something and creating a solution that is, well, let's take plastic, for example. If it's a design solution that knowingly creates harm because maybe it makes more plastic or delivers, can't think of the good word, delivers more plastic into the environment long term, well, that doesn't seem like a very human-centered solution, because we now know that putting plastic into the environment is bad for the environment, and the things that are bad for the environment are certainly in the long term, probably in the short term too, bad for humans. So that doesn't, in my mind, that doesn't seem human-centered.
I think this is where the perhaps the argument for sustainable comes in. Like, we create solutions that are desirable, feasible, viable. Within that, when we talk about viability, what is the length of viability?
Okay. Yes, and I you mentioned a model there that we are, I guess, familiar with as designers and human-centered design practitioners, design thinkers. The three lenses we can look at any problem through. We can look at things through a desirability lens. So what do people need and want in their lives? A feasibility lens, which can be applied to, say, what technology we can use to solve a particular problem, or what arrangement of people and business units and teams or even organizations can be used to solve that problem. And then viability, and quite often that's thought of as business or commercial. What can we get return on investment by solving this problem? And if we look at things through all of those three lenses at once, then we tend to find really great, feasible, viable, and most importantly, desirable solutions. What you're saying is, if we added either sustainability into that as a fourth lens, or perhaps blended it into one of the others, then that makes more sense as a future definition or current definition of human-centered design. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't think it's adding a fourth lens. I think it's expanding the lens of viability. Okay. I think when we talk about viability, we need to consider how sustainable is this, a year from now, what impact is it going to have on other things?
Yeah. Okay. Nice. That's your view. And here we go. Last time, I think I said we don't agree on everything. Maybe we do agree, but I see this differently. I think of sustainability as being a desirable, I guess, attribute or part of a desirability lens. Because I think, if it's not sustainable in the year 2022, if it's not sustainable, then it's not desirable. But I guess thinking about human-centered design and the models that we use, for me, I think they're really useful to help people join you on a particular journey. Maybe I'm jumping too far ahead in my own journey and going, well, of course, sustainable is the same as or needs to be part of desirable. Perhaps you're maybe it's both, or maybe viable is the way to go.
So I'm going to push back a little bit on what you're saying, right? So, yeah, cool. So right now there's a trend in moving from disposable diapers or nappies to reusable ones.
Yeah.
Now most people will say, I don't know how desirable the reusable ones are. They're certainly more viable long term, because we're not chucking these dirty plastic nappies into landfills, right? So I think that's where I can see, from my view, where if you think about sustainability as desirability, where we might start to make choices that are more convenient for us from a desirability perspective.
Okay, you're maybe being slightly more realistic than me then, and understanding maybe broader patterns of human behavior that will. So maybe you're saying that humans in general will always go for the easiest option. Is that right? And therefore, sustainability, if we want to create sustainable solutions, then we need to look at that through a lens of viability. In other words, making it more attractive for people to pay for a solution. Is that?
Yeah. So I think that sustainability would have more of a longer stay, if you will, if you put in viability. But then that will bring you back to, well, how do we make disposable nappies more desirable for people?
Yeah, okay.
As an example, I mean, I'm picking on the nappies because that's the example that came to mind, but we can apply it to other things as well.
Well,
that was it.
Let's stick with one example this week, and let's stick with nappies. Hopefully, people are still listening. So, if we think of disposable nappies and redesigning disposable nappies to become more if we think about our original question, then human-centered design, is it me, you, we, us? Is it only for humans? How would we? What would be a more expansive definition or version of human-centered design that we use to start tackling this challenge of how might we design disposable nappies for the 21st century?
Well, I guess I would have to start with understanding what the pain points of nappies are.
Okay.
So kind of understanding what are the pain points, what makes disposable diapers more desirable and attractive than reusable ones, right? That would kind of be the starting point, a little bit of discovery. That would then help inform the other circles, right?
Okay. So you start and nice accommodation for our international audience there. Diapers, nappies, the same thing. You say diapers, I'll say nappies. So these disposable nappies, we would start by investigating the desirability questions around disposable. Why do people choose to use desirable disposable nappies instead of reusable nappies? And maybe we could add in the extra dimension of, despite the fact that it's reasonably well known that disposable nappies are going to be in the environment for 400 years from now. So yeah, we would embark on this desire to understand why people make that choice to begin with. That's what you're saying there, isn't it?
And then maybe part of the design process is going, let's say the desirability is really for disposable diapers, then part of the design process maybe is looking at, this product made in this way, we can, it's technically feasible, it's desirable, but when we think about viability, this is the true cost of it. I don't think what we design, in a lot of design conversations, we don't have that environmental cost or the long-term impact of creating.
Okay, you're starting to win me round now. So it's kind of starting. My slow brain has caught up with you. So we're kind of asking these questions and exploring this, I guess, problem space and the potential solution space, and actually, viability. While I think I have a personal perspective that sustainability is a desirable attribute, then actually solving the problem of sustainability, we need to look at it through a lens of, I guess, commercial, let's be blunt, commercial business viability. So yeah, but then yes. So what's the long-term cost benefit analysis of a disposable nappy versus I guess a recyclable or sustainably designed disposable nappy. Okay. Right.
And I think this is where maybe into viability, how what's that concept, the triple bottom line concept?
Yes.
Maybe this is where that fades in.
Yeah.
It is about profits, but it's also about people and planet.
Yeah, I like that. So maybe and I'm kind of imagining when I'm talking to people who've not come across this three lenses before the model, perhaps, rather than going viability and the other word we can use there is business, maybe it's something more expansive than business. It's total costs or overall total cost benefit, the triple bottom line, I think six capitals is another term that's used to describe everything, including the air we breathe and the all the really important things. in life on this planet?
Yeah, so I think where we're getting to with this conversation is we should be considering more than just the humans in human-centered design, and that needs to be a broader definition of what we mean when we say human. I liked what you said earlier about, well, if it's good, if we're truly making decisions that are good for humans, then they should be good for the planet and, good for the long term and all of that. I don't think in practice we've done that well. That's a collectively.
Yeah.
So what does this all, what does it all mean?
What does it all mean? Well, I think you started to summarize really nicely there, Dani. So I'll keep going with that. I think, agreed. We appear not to have done a great job so far in the last sort of couple of hundred years of being aware of, things we've done perhaps unintentionally to the environment that we live in all its different forms. So, but we also appear to be the organism on this planet that is able to change the environment, I think, on the widest scale. So for me, human-centered design, that we do, let's think about it broadly. I guess what we're saying, our conversation seems to say, that we need to think more broadly about what human-centered means. And I think what we are saying is we need to include some perspective on sustainability when we're thinking about human-centered design.
I also, so definitely sustainability. I also think we need to think about the groups, right? So let's say we are working with a group of parents to design a more desirable reusable diaper. Now, does creating that product in some way impact another group of people? Is it taking away resources? Is it, is it creating some sort of, just creating a solution for X somehow negatively impact another group? So I think it's also being aware that there are other humans that exist beyond the people that you're solving a problem for.
Okay, got you. Yeah, that's something we don't have time to delve into. Maybe it's another podcast, but perhaps what you're saying is sustainable and equitable, rather than unintentionally creating or perpetuating inequality or inequity, if that's a word. Nice. I feel like there's a second episode later down the track on this one, Dani.
I definitely think so.
What's one thing you've taken away then from our shorter conversation today?
I think the thing I'm still experimenting in my head from that thought experiment that you presented earlier in the podcast. Like, if as humans we were all frozen, would the problem still exist? So if people that, if humans weren't around to experience the problems, our problems here. So I think that's something I want to take away and ponder a bit more.
Okay, cool. I hope you enjoy that. Something I've taken away from you actually is this shifting of my only thinking about sustainability in terms of desirability, and now I'm going to think of it both in terms of desirability and also in terms of or in conjunction with, mixed in with this question of viability, and thinking about viability as total cost and total benefit rather than simple financial cost and financial benefit. So thank you. I really appreciate you giving me that further thought.
It'd be cool to hear at some point how that might be influencing how your design practice is shifting.
Yeah, I would definitely come back to. Maybe we'll come back to the audience and tell you how we've shifted on those two things later on our follow-up episode on this question of human-centered design.
Nice. nice. All right, I think that does it for us this week, episode 2. Tune in next week for our 3rd episode. We will see everyone or talk to everyone then.
Great stuff. Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks, Dani. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.